Subscribe to Man Told for more stories. Now let's begin this one. The cry of Sophie echoed from upstairs, a child's cry. Tearing through the silence of the house I once called home. I had just stepped inside the door when I saw Claire, my wife, on her knees at the bottom of the staircase, her face pale, her hands trembling, clutching the wooden rail. When she saw me, she shook her head again and again, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Andrew, don't go upstairs. Please, don't look into the kids' room." I froze, my heart pounding, my throat locked tight. My wife, the woman beside me for 15 years, was now begging me not to go to my own children. And in that moment, I knew something had broken, not just in this house, but in my marriage. It started 20 minutes earlier. I was sitting in a glass-walled boardroom, about to sign the biggest deal of my career, a contract that could lift my real estate company to a whole new level. Outside, the client smiled, waiting. Inside, I felt like my career was finally safe. Then my phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. "Don't leave your kids alone with their mother." I thought I misread it. But no, the words burned on the screen, cold as a knife. I called Claire. No answer. I called Ethan, our eldest son. Silence. I called Sophie. Only the empty voice of the operator. People say men fear losing their careers. But the truth is, I have never known fear like that moment. The fear of losing my children. I left the contract on the table. Left the leather briefcase that carried 15 years of work. I ran for my car. Drove like a madman. The highway blurred beneath my wheels. Every second my heart pounded louder. If that message is true, then the one person I trusted most has become the greatest threat to our children. When I turned onto our street, my stomach knotted. The front door was wide open, curtains whipping in the wind. On the steps, Sophie's tiny shoes, one tilted sideways, as if yanked off in a hurry. I shouted, "Claire, Ethan, Sophie!" Only silence answered back. Then, the sound. The cry of my daughter, from upstairs. And there was Claire, on her knees beneath the staircase, her voice broken, pleading, "Please, Andrew, don't go up there." The world collapsed around me. I stood frozen, my hand gripping the cold wooden rail. Every step of that staircase, a path leading me to a truth I wasn't sure I could survive. That night, I knew. After 15 years, my marriage was over. I'm Andrew Harper, 41 years old. People look at me and say, "You have it all." A fast-growing real estate company, a spacious house in the suburbs, a gentle wife, 2 children who never caused trouble. But if you only looked from the outside, you'd never see the cracks spreading quietly inside. I was born in Oregon. My father drove trucks. My mother worked a supermarket register. They weren't rich, but they gave me 2 things: patience and the habit of working myself to exhaustion. When I was 22, my father died of a heart attack. I abandoned the dream of grad school, took construction jobs instead to support my mother and younger sister. Those days under rain and sun built a fire inside me, a dream to have my own company and a true home. I met Claire on a small project. She was a young architectural assistant, bright eyes, always smiling. I still remember our first date, a cheap cafe, 1 slice of cake shared between us. I told her, "One day, I'll buy you the whole bakery." She laughed, didn't believe me, but she held my hand anyway. We married when I was 26. Back then, I had nothing but calloused hands and a bag of worn clothes. Our first apartment was a rental on the 3rd floor, wooden stairs creaking, winter wind seeping through the cracks, but we were happy. I worked all day. Claire worked part-time, cooked dinner. Some nights I came home late to find her sewing my only shirt, the one I wore to meet clients. I swore silently, one day, she'll never have to patch poverty out of my clothes again. Then Ethan was born. I thought I was tough, but the moment I heard his cry, I wept. My father never lived to see me grow up, but I promised myself I'd never miss a moment of my son's life. 4 years later, Sophie came. She had her mother's eyes, shining like drops of water. Claire said, "She'll be the light of this family." And I believed it. If you asked me about the happiest years of my life, it was the time we lived in the small 2-story house I bought with my own hands. Mornings, I drove Ethan to school. Claire packed lunches. Sophie ran around the yard. Evenings, we gathered at the old wooden table, sharing stories of the day. But then my company grew. More contracts, more responsibilities. I was away more often. Claire left dinner in the microwave for me. Some nights, I came home to sleeping children, and a wife turned away on the bed. I thought it was normal. The price of success. I was a strict father. Ethan once told me, "Dad, you never think I'm good enough." And he was right. I wanted him stronger than I ever was, so I pushed too hard. One time, he came third in basketball. I snapped, "You need to work twice as hard." That night, he lay facing the wall, and I knew I had hurt him. But the next morning, I rushed to work, never apologized. Sophie was different. She was my gentle comfort. While I pored over contracts, she drew pictures beside me. Simple drawings. A house, trees, the four of us holding hands under the sky. I smiled, taped them to my office wall. But one picture I'll never forget. Sophie drew only 3. Me, Ethan, and herself. No Claire. When I asked, she said softly, "Mom's too busy to play with me." I laughed it off. But inside, something stung. After Sophie was born, Claire slowly withdrew from work. I thought it was good. She'd be the anchor while I provided. But she began to change. She kept her phone close, always. Once during dinner, it buzzed. She rushed away. "It's a friend," she said. She often claimed she was shopping, but returned late. At first, I blamed traffic. But then I noticed strange perfume on her clothes, eyes avoiding mine when I asked. Still, I chose to trust. This is the woman who stood by me when I had nothing, I told myself. She would never betray me. That was my greatest mistake. Blind trust. I didn't see how she grew distant. No more messages. "Have you eaten yet?" No more hugs when I came home. Only silence. Only distance. One night, I came home late. Ethan asleep. Sophie curled on the sofa, clutching her teddy bear. Claire sat by the window, staring out. "What's wrong?" I asked. She said nothing. I tried to hold her. She pushed me away. "I'm tired." I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, feeling lost inside the very house I had built. There were signs. I just didn't see them. Like the night Sophie handed me a test. A C. Whispered, "I'm sorry, Daddy." I wanted to yell, but her sad little eyes stopped me. I just nodded, patted her head, and left. I sat in my car and cried. A successful man, but powerless against his daughter's sadness. Or the night I missed Sophie's school play. Claire sent me a video. Sophie on stage smiling, but her eyes kept searching the audience. I knew who she was looking for. When the video ended, I sat in my car for hours. Phone still in my hand, empty inside. If you ask me now, what was the first sign of collapse? It wasn't the strange message. It was Sophie's drawings missing her mother. Ethan's disappointed eyes. The silence between me and Claire. But I didn't want to face it. I told myself, if I just succeed more, earn more, it will all be fine. I was wrong. And then, one day, all that belief shattered. With one line. Cold words on a glowing screen. "Don't leave your kids alone with their mother." That night, I came home earlier than expected. A sudden storm had canceled my meeting. I thought, maybe tonight, I'll surprise my family. But when I walked into the house, there was no laughter, no smell of dinner, only whispers. From the bedroom, the door was half closed. I stepped closer, my heart pounding. Inside, Claire sat on the bed, phone in her hand, her shoulders trembling. She was crying. I froze at the doorway. This wasn't the strong woman I once knew. "What's wrong?" I asked, voice tight. She startled, hid the phone under a pillow. "Nothing. You're home early." I moved toward her. She wiped her tears in a rush. On the screen, I caught a glimpse of a message. Just a few words. "Does he know yet?" My chest sank. I wanted to ask, to grab the phone, but my body locked. All I could mutter was, "If you're tired, you should rest." Dinner that night was heavier than any meal I'd ever had. Ethan kept his head down. Sophie said nothing. And Claire sat like a shadow. Then Sophie whispered, "Daddy, Mommy told me not to tell you things, but I think you should know." "Sophie," Claire snapped. Her chopsticks clattered against the table. The room went silent. Sophie lowered her head, whispering, "Never mind, Daddy. Eat." My heart clenched. Why does my daughter need to hide things from me? And why does her own mother silence her? I began to notice, and the more I watched, the more the pieces formed a picture I didn't want to see. Claire often disappeared in the afternoons. "Shopping," she said, or meeting a friend. One day, I left work early, waited at the corner of our street. I saw her hurry out of the house. Step into a black car waiting. The man inside wore a cap, face hidden. The car pulled away, and for a moment I glimpsed something in the back seat. Sophie's teddy bear. My stomach turned. Why would she take our daughter's toy? Was Sophie in that car? I wanted to run after them, but my legs felt like stone. I just stood there watching the car disappear, while a storm raged inside me. The next day, Ethan came home angry. He slammed his backpack down, yelled at me, "Dad, do you even know what's happening in this house? Or do you only care about your company?" I froze. "Ethan, tell me, what's going on?" He laughed bitterly, eyes red. "No, you'd never believe me. Just like you always believe Mom." Then he stormed upstairs, the words echoing in my head. "You always believe Mom." And I, a father who wanted his son strong, stood powerless. That night, searching my office drawer, I found one of Sophie's drawings. A dark house, windows shut. Inside, only two people, me and her. No Ethan, no Claire. At the corner, scrawled words, "I want to stay with Daddy." My hand trembled. Tears fell before I realized. A 6-year-old doesn't write that, unless she feels unsafe. I buried my head in my arms, whispering, "What did I do wrong? Why do my children feel so alone? In the house I built for them?" Days later, on the drive to school, Sophie asked softly, "Daddy, if one day Mommy's not here, will you stay with me?" The question cut like a blade. I forced my voice steady. "Of course, sweetheart. Daddy will always be here," she nodded. But her eyes shimmered with tears. I drove on, my heart breaking. What has she seen? What has she heard? That night, I confronted Claire. "Are you hiding something from me?" She went silent, then smirked faintly. "Andrew, you can't control everything. Some things you'd rather not know." Her words froze me. I wanted to push further, but Sophie ran in, wrapping my leg. "Daddy, come play with me." The moment slipped away. Like so many times before, I lived in constant tension. Daytime, smiling in suits, shaking hands with clients. Nighttime, staring at the ceiling, drowning in suspicion. Claire was no longer the woman I knew. Always by the window, phone in hand. The children distant from her. And me, I felt like a stranger in my own family. The breaking point came on a stormy night. I stepped inside, just as Sophie's sobs tore from the kitchen. "Mommy, I'm scared. I don't want to stay with you when Daddy's gone." Claire's voice cut sharp. "Be quiet, don't say that." I rushed in. Sophie was curled up, tears streaming. She ran into my arms, clung to my legs, pleading, "Daddy, please don't make me stay with Mommy." I froze, my entire body numb. I turned to Claire. She sat slumped in a chair, not panicked, not guilty. Her eyes were cold, empty, and in that moment, I knew. Everything had changed. The house I thought was safest had become the darkest place of all. After that night, when Sophie clung to my leg, refusing to stay with her mother, the house felt foreign. Every step, every clink of a spoon in a bowl, could stir an undercurrent ready to explode. The next morning, I drove Sophie to school. She sat quietly in the back seat, holding her teddy bear tight. Before walking inside, she tugged my hand. "Daddy, if I call, you'll come right away, won't you?" I nodded, swallowing hard. "I'll come, no matter when." A simple promise. But it weighed on me like stone. That afternoon, I called my brother, Mark. "I think something's wrong at home," I told him. He was silent for a long moment, then said quietly, "Andrew, what if the truth is worse than you think?" I froze. Worse than this? Could I even bear it? That evening, I tried to reset things. I took the family to dinner by the river. Golden light reflected on the wooden table. Waves lapped softly outside. I forced a smile. Told stories. Sophie gave a weak laugh. Ethan kept his face buried in his phone. And Claire stared out the window, lost somewhere else. Finally, I took a breath. "I've scheduled something this weekend. Marriage counseling. Maybe we can try?" Claire's lips curled in a faint smirk. "You really think one session will fix us?" The air turned cold. I gripped my glass so tight my hand shook. I had tried, but every effort vanished into nothing. That night, I didn't sleep in our bed. I spread a blanket on the couch. Not from anger, but because Sophie had been waking in fear. I wanted to be near her. Before sleeping, I slipped a note under Ethan's door. "I'm always here. When you're ready, I'll listen." In the morning, it was still there, untouched. Saturday. Claire said she was meeting a friend. I waited by the window, and there it was, the black car. Again, Claire stepped out quickly, slammed the door behind her. The man inside opened the door for her. My heart pounded. I rushed outside. But then, a small figure appeared in the back seat. Sophie. I froze. Why had she taken our daughter? Without telling me. For a moment, I wanted to pound the glass, rip the door open, pull Sophie back. But my body locked. I just stood there, watching the car vanish, my chest ready to burst. Later that day, a call came. Andrew, we're canceling the contract. Another firm sent a proposal identical to yours. I went cold. I had shared that idea with one person only, Claire. That night, I asked directly, "Did you give my documents to someone?" She looked at me, eyes dead. "You think I'm that kind of person? I just want the truth." Her glass slammed against the table, water spilling everywhere. The truth is, you never stop doubting. This house is a cage, and I'm suffocating. For the first time in years, she screamed in my face. And for the first time, I felt my hand twitch, wanting to hurl my glass to the ground. But I held it, because I feared Sophie would see. The next day, marriage counseling. A small beige room, soft chairs. I spoke first. Cold dinners. The silence. My fear for our daughter. I never said the word betrayal. I just whispered, "I don't recognize my wife anymore." The counselor turned to Claire. She sat upright, silent for a long time. Then finally, "I'm exhausted. I feel like I disappear when I'm with him." I turned to her, searching for something familiar in her eyes. But all I found was emptiness. That night, I left a letter on the table. "I'm afraid of losing you. Afraid of losing our children. I don't know what else to do, but hold on." In the morning, it was still there. Beside it, a cold cup of coffee. The only sign she had read it, and chosen not to answer. Days passed. I noticed everything. Her long absences, the secretive glances, the messages flashing on her screen. I didn't want to become a detective, but I couldn't stay blind anymore. One afternoon, after dropping Sophie at school, I drove to a quiet parking lot and waited. Then, Claire appeared. She stepped out of a cafe, a small smile on her lips, and beside her, David. I gripped the wheel so hard my palms bled. Memories flooded back. The years we built a business together, the times he called me brother, and now, he held my wife's hand. That night, I invited him to dinner, the table heavy as stone. I raised my glass, eyes locked on his. "Remember our promise? We swore we'd never betray each other." David lowered his head. His hands trembled. "Andrew, there are things I'll explain." Claire sat silent. The only sound, spoons clinking against plates. When David left, I asked Claire, "What do you want?" Her answer was sharp. One word, freedom. It cut through me like the final blade. But it didn't end there. The next day, the school called. Ethan had been in a fight. I rushed over, found him in the corner of the yard, bruised, eyes swollen. He screamed. "They mocked me. They said Mom's with Uncle David." I couldn't take it. I held him. And inside, I shattered. The cracks in our marriage had now split our son in two. That night, sorting through a bookshelf, I found an envelope, hidden in one of Claire's old notebooks. It bore the logo of a women's clinic, a blood test appointment, mother and child, from years ago. I stood frozen. My hands shook so violently. The paper slipped to the floor. A terrifying thought pierced me. Ethan, was he even mine? My chest pounded, cold sweat dripping down. I prayed it was meaningless, just a forgotten paper. But then my phone buzzed. A message. Anonymous. Only one line. "Are you sure Ethan is really your son?" The room spun. I collapsed into a chair. The house was silent. But in that silence, I knew. The real storm was coming. The anonymous message still glowed on my phone. "Are you sure Ethan is really your son?" I sat frozen, my heart pounding so hard my ears rang. Those words tore through my memories. Every moment of Ethan's life, from his first cry to the man he was becoming. For 3 nights, I couldn't sleep. I found myself standing in his doorway, watching him breathe as he slept. In the yellow glow, I told myself, "No, he has my eyes, my mother's smile. Of course he's mine." But then he rolled over, and I saw the small scar at his temple, the exact same scar David once showed me as a child. My chest collapsed. With trembling hands, I plucked a strand of Ethan's hair. It felt like betrayal, like I was betraying my own son. Every step of sending it off for testing, I almost stopped. Once, when Sophie hugged me, I nearly threw the envelope into the fire, but I didn't. I sent it. When the results came, I couldn't open them. The envelope sat in my drawer for 2 days. Finally, I ripped it open. The page read, "Probability of relation, 99%. Relief washed over me. I broke down, crying. I had doubted my son. I had doubted Claire. All for nothing. But then, I noticed. The ink was smudged. The name didn't match. My hands shook. I flipped the papers. And there it was. The real result. Probability of relation, 0%. The floor disappeared beneath me, like surfacing for air, only to be dragged down again. Deeper. No way out. That night, I placed the results on the table. When Claire walked in, her eyes caught the words. Her face went pale. I rasped, "Ethan, he's not mine, is he?" She closed her eyes for a long moment. When she opened them, her voice was quiet, but firm. "Yes, Ethan is David's son." Her words struck like lightning. My world exploded into silence. A bitter laugh escaped me. "So what was I to you for 15 years? A substitute? A shadow?" Claire shook her head. Tears fell. "No, Andrew, I did love you. But this truth, I can't erase." Then, a sound. A ball rolling down the stairs, stopping at my feet. I looked up. Ethan stood there, eyes wide, body trembling, a phone in one hand, the ball still spinning from the other. "Dad?" His voice broke. "Tell me it's not true. Tell me I'm your son." I ran to him, pulled him into my arms. His body burned hot, shaking. I whispered through tears, "Son, I don't need papers. I raised you. From your first steps, to every bruise, to every goal you ever scored. I was there. You will always be my son. Nothing can change that." Ethan sobbed into my shoulder. And in that moment, the pain was a blade. But it was also the rope keeping me from falling apart. Claire turned away, tears sliding down her face. She didn't speak, just grabbed her coat. The door slammed shut, echoing through the house. I sank to the floor. Ethan still in my arms. Sophie rushed down the stairs. She clung to me, to her brother. The three of us huddled together, in the wreckage of our home. Later, when they slept, I sat alone in my study, the DNA results still on the table. I tore them into pieces, white scraps fluttering through the air. One piece stuck to my shoe. As I walked, it dragged, smearing a black streak across the wooden floor. Proof that no matter how I tried, the truth would never disappear. I sank into a chair, lifted my phone, dialed David. My voice was ice, stronger than I'd ever heard it. "We need to meet. One last time. Not for Claire, for Ethan." On the other end, silence. Then finally, a single word. "All right." When I set the phone down, I stared out the window. Rain hammered against the glass, each drop heavy, relentless. And I knew the real storm was still ahead. But this time, I wouldn't run. The rain pounded against the cafe windows. It felt like the whole city was drowning. I stepped inside. The same cafe where David and I once swore we'd stand side by side for life. Today, he looked like a stranger. His eyes were red. We sat. The silence so heavy, I could hear every drop of rain against the glass. "Why, David?" My voice was low, but sharp. He lowered his head. I have no excuse. Back then, Claire was lonely. And you were never home. I was wrong, Andrew. I was wrong." A bitter laugh escaped me. "Wrong? One night can be a mistake. But 15 years of silence? You let me love a child, call him my son, while you carried the truth." David shook his head. "No, I wasn't sure." Claire never confirmed. "I prayed he was yours, Andrew. I was afraid, too afraid to face it." I stared at him, and I saw it clearly. This wasn't my brother in arms. This was a coward, a man who chose silence to save himself. "Ethan knows," I said finally. "He's hurting, but I told him, he will always be my son. You're just a name on a piece of paper." David trembled. I want to see him. Just once." I stood. "Don't. If you have even a shred of decency left, leave him alone. He doesn't need a father on paper. He has a father in flesh and blood. And that's me." David bowed his head. Tears hit the table. I walked out. The rain swallowed me whole. And I knew our friendship was dead. Days later, Claire came back. She stood at the door, thin, exhausted. "Andrew," her voice cracked. "I'm sorry. I know I don't deserve to say this, but I have to. I was wrong. I let the distance grow, and I turned to David. But I never stopped loving you. I just never had the courage to admit the truth. I closed my eyes. Memories flooded back. Her smile, our first hugs, the dream of a simple family. For a moment, I almost believed there was still a light left to forgive. But then I remembered Ethan's tears in my arms, Sophie's drawings of a broken home. The war inside me ended in one conclusion. Claire, I loved you with everything. But love cannot live with lies. The truth killed it. She broke down, reached for me. I stepped back. Her eyes full of guilt cut into me like knives. But I couldn't go back. Ethan stayed silent for days, barely looked at his mother. One night, at the park, he asked quietly, Dad, if one day I want to meet him, would you hate me? The question froze me. In his eyes, the confusion of a boy caught between two truths. I wrapped my arm around his shoulder. My voice cracked. Son, I could never hate you. You have the right to ask questions, the right to search for answers. But remember this, no matter who you meet, no matter what you hear, I am here, always. Tears welled in his eyes. He whispered, I'm more afraid of losing you than anything. I squeezed his shoulder tight, swore silently, that will never happen. The next night, Claire came again, her voice shaking. Andrew, please, don't tell my parents. Don't tell the neighbors. I couldn't survive the shame. I stared at her for a long time. Part of me wanted to say, they deserve the truth. But I turned away, silent. Her sobs filled the room, and in that silence, she understood. Between us, only emptiness remained. A week later, I filed for divorce. Claire didn't resist. At court, we signed. A few strokes of ink, and a marriage became memory. Outside, she looked at me, whispered, Thank you for not turning this into hatred. I hope one day the children forgive me. I didn't answer. I only looked at Ethan and Sophie waiting for me, and I knew my only duty now was to keep their hearts from breaking. On the last night, packing to leave the house, I noticed Sophie's desk. On it, a messy piece of paper. I walked closer. She had collected the shredded DNA results, glued them together into the shape of a crooked heart. I stopped. A heart, broken and stitched, misshapen, but still a heart. In that moment, I understood. Love is never perfect. But even torn apart, it can still bind us. I smiled faintly, placed my hand on Sophie's head as she slept by her desk. Then I turned and closed the door behind me. I left the old house on a foggy morning. No rain, no storm, just a pale sky, like a blank page waiting to be written. When the door closed behind me, the click echoed sharp, the final period of a long chapter. Our small car turned down the familiar road. Ethan sat quietly, eyes forward. 15 years old, carrying cracks too heavy for his age. Sophie leaned against my shoulder, her old teddy bear pressed to her chest. Fast asleep. In the rearview mirror, I saw the empty space where Claire once sat. But then I looked again. Front seat, back seat. My family was still here. Not four anymore, but still a family. The days that followed, I learned how to live again. Morning, I brewed my own coffee, drove Ethan to school. Afternoon, I took Sophie to the park, listened to her chatter about dolls. Night, I sat at the old wooden desk, worked while the wind brushed the windows. And I realized, happiness isn't eternal vows. It's the small things. My son strumming clumsy guitar notes. My daughter's arms wrapped tight around me after a nightmare. The simple fact that after everything, I could still smile. Some nights, memories still flooded back. The wedding, the first hug, Ethan's first cry. I once thought those moments would last forever. But now I understand. Love doesn't die. It just changes form. Today, I love differently. I love Ethan, not because of blood, but because of every breath, every glance we've shared. I love Sophie for her innocence that pulled me from the abyss. I love myself for daring to face the truth instead of running. And I even love the mistakes, because without them, I'd never know the weight of truth or the value of loyalty. If you asked me, do I regret it? No, because without the breaking, I'd never have learned how strong a father's love can be. Blood may define biology, but only love defines family. One night, Ethan sat beside me. Dad, I don't know what the future holds, but I promise I'll always be here. For you, for Sophie, the way you've always been for me. I placed a hand on his shoulder. In his eyes, I saw a new strength, born from pain, but also from love. And I whispered, "That's enough for me, son." Later, before sleep, Sophie whispered, "Daddy, don't be sad. We still have 3 people. We're still a family." Tears filled my eyes. Sometimes, children see the truth clearer than we ever can. Family isn't always whole, but love can fill the missing pieces. Now, as I write this, I no longer see myself as broken. I am someone who walked out of ruins, still scarred, but still standing. I don't blame Claire. I don't hate David. Hatred only chains you to the dark. I choose forgiveness, not for them, but for me. I've learned some cracks never heal, but light still shines through them. And it's that light that shows me the road ahead. On the final night, I glanced at the rearview mirror, the reflection of the 3 of us. A little distorted, but enough to call a family. I smiled, because a heart may be scarred, but it still beats. A home may be missing someone, but if there's love, it's still warm. I chose to move forward. And you? Will you stay in the dark forever? Or step into the light and give yourself a new beginning?